And in that same vein, at Papster, we really, really value serving. It's a part of our DNA, it's a part of our culture, it's a part of who we are. Jesus came to this world to serve in really big ways, but also in really small ways. And Jesus told his followers that they were called to serve and to bring freedom, to bring good news, first of all to Jerusalem, and then to Samaria, and then to the uttermost parts of the world. And I think if he was saying that to us today, he would say we are called to bring good news, we are called to bring freedom, first of all right here in Papatoe, and then in Manukau, and then maybe Kaitaia and Tokoroa and Gisborne, and then maybe Cambodia and Nepal. At Papster, we have 3 international projects that we're connected with, and our first one is our little village in Cambodia, and we did have an incredible trip in December, and I'd love to tell you a little bit more about that another time. We have our Komalala Community Centre in South Africa, and we've got a team going there in July, and we have our anti-human trafficking in Nepal. And today we have the privilege of one of the most remarkable women who I have ever met speaking to us. Her name is Helen. And I don't say that about being one of the most remarkable women that I've ever met lightly, although I know she's incredibly humble, and Helen doesn't see it that way at all. Helen was born in Gisborne, and she grew up riding bareback to school. She's got 2 biological daughters and 3 adopted orphan children, one of whom is Diane Eager, that some of you will know. Her daughter is Delmay Ryan, who is sister-in-law to Ricky and Tracy, so that's a Papster connection. And Helen has worked tirelessly for decades to help orphans in India and Nepal to find some hope, to have some choices, and to have a life and education. Currently, she's based in Nepal for 5 months of the year because that's as much as the Nepali government will allow her to stay there as a non-citizen. And it's where she has co-founded an organisation called 3Angels. Last year, in April, Norman and I interviewed Andrew and Julie Cahoon from Captivating International. And as a church, we undertook to fund 1 border crossing station between Nepal and India. At that 1 border crossing station, it's anticipated that 1,000 girls would be intercepted in the first 12 months. That's 1,000 girls who were in the process of being trafficked towards a life of sex slavery. The women who are actually on the ground, who are doing the work, who talk to these girls, who meet the potential traffickers and get them convicted, are the women who work at 3Angels, the women who Helen works with, who Helen has trained in the organisation that she co-founded. Currently, Papster is committed to $20,000 a year for the next 3 years, and in the first 6 months of our funding last year, I can tell you that 474 girls were intercepted and they were stopped from ending up in a brothel. I think that's worth a clap. There was 5 girls who were actually rescued from brothels. So that's 479 girls who say an incredibly huge thank you. I don't think we can begin to imagine the difference that the $20 that somebody from these seats gave that has saved that girl from being in a brothel. So today, we are going to watch a video to just help us to understand a little bit more about the work that goes on there. Then we're going to hear from Helen, hear some stories that some of the funding from here has helped to create. And then I'm just going to come back and wrap up for a few minutes. So just watch the screens now.
Not very long from now, you will see no Nepali women in Nepal. About 18 to 20,000 of Nepali women get stolen and taken across to India and sold into brothels every year.
केटीहरू अथवा महिलाहरू एउटा कोकमा एउटा टपीमा बेचिन थालेका छन् के बोर्डर बाहिर मात्र नेपाल भित्र पनि त्यो भइरहेको छ यहाँ सुन्नु भएको हेर्नु अब हाम्रो नेपालमा त हामी उहाँले भन्नुभयो मैले छोड्दिएँ उता गएपछि तपाईँलाई कसैले चाहिँ पैसा खान डिस्टर्ब गरिदिन्छन् ये क्या है तुम्हारी क्या लगती है इसका पहिचान को के देखो नि तपाईले पहिचान पत्र छोटी पनि हुन्छ दिदी सँग नमाग्नु ए नानो बसन अनि कहाँ जानु
त्यसको त्यहाँ खानापिना बस्न सबै चिजसाथ व्यवस्था गरेर हामीसँग राख्छौँ र त्यो राखेपछि माइती पक्ष पहिलो पक्ष जस्तो आउँछ त्यसलाई बिहारपछि दिन्छौँ.
Some of the more remote parts of Nepal, there are villages where there are no girls left between the age of 11 and 20. They've all been trafficked.
यस्तै यस्तै कुरामा जस अब हामी नेपालीहरू गरिब छौं त्यो भएको कारणले गर्दाखेरि पनि हामीहरू हाम्रो दिदीबहिनीहरू राम्रो खाना राम्रो लाउनको लागि लोभिन्छन् हैन त्यस्तै भएको हुनाले यस्तो केसहरू धेरै छन् हाम्रो नेपालमा
भाडाहरू माझेर हामी त्यसपछि टेबलहरू सफा गर्ने गरे त्यसपछि
यतै खाना लाउनलाई पनि कपडा सपडा यताउता केही नदिने मलाई
मलाई अनि त्यतातिर घाँस दाउरा गराउने जग्गा जस्तो
Once they get over the border, there's very little you can do to bring them back.
अनि जान्छौ तिम्रो घर जाउला भनेर भनिराख्ने थियो हैन मैले भने फुच्चीलाई लगेर जान्छु म एकचोटी गेडा वहाँ औषधि गर्छु अस्पतालमा ठीक हुन्छ वहाँ भनेर भने वहाँ गएपछि तिमीहरू आउनु भनेर हामीलाई अनि आउन नदिने तर मलाई त ठिकै लाग्यो हैन आफू त आइहाले भागेर आफू आएकोमा मलाई यति खुसी भएन के फुच्ची नआएको हुनाले मलाई त्यति केही लागेन त्यो तर कसैको केही मतलब नगर्ने के कुरो सुन्ने पनि नै केही मतलब नगर्ने त्यही भएर अनि मैले सोचे कसैको न म अब मैले लास्टमा म जानसम्म पुगिसकेको थिएँ फुच्चीको लागि
Good morning, everybody. Aren't our girls beautiful? Now, first of all, I just wanted to show you one beautiful picture of Nepal. Can we have the photos? Okay. Nepal is a beautiful country, but there's lots of horror happens in Nepal. I think one of the biggest problems in Nepal, apart from the poverty, which is at the back of most of the sex trafficking, is the fact of their caste system. I have worked a lot in India, Nepal and Bangladesh now for many years, but in Nepal, the caste system I feel is the worst. If you belong to the lowest untouchable caste, it's like you're a nothing, you're a nobody, you have no rights. Say if I was high caste and I murdered somebody and I said you did it, you'll go to jail for 20 years and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't go to a lawyer, you can't go to the police, they'll just laugh at you. And this is part of the problem. Of course, poverty. Now, the girls that are rescued, of all the hundreds of girls, thousands, I guess, of girls that we have actually rescued, never have any of those girls that have actually been in the brothels been paid. So if people tell you they do this from choice, they don't. Sometimes the traffickers actually marry the girls and they think they're going there to have a wonderful life. Sometimes they're small girls. I'll just tell you one story about a little 9-year-old girl. She was actually stopped by a lady on the way to school. They would do this on the way to school, and then the child won't be missed till about 4 or so in the afternoon, you see, so that gives them plenty of time to get away. Now, this little girl that was picked up by this lady who was trafficking, she somehow was related to one of our staff in our 3Angels Nepal office in Pokhara. And so they contacted us, and so we just sent emails to everybody, please pray, please pray, please pray. What had happened, this woman had given this small girl into the hands of a 19-year-old. And the child was told, you will say that this girl is your sister, If you don't do that, you will get no food and no water. Now, after 2 days, I think God was working and answering our prayers. They missed a bus connection, so they had to stay the night in a hotel or motel, we might call them in this part of the world. And the man at the desk, he, I think, was suspicious. And I think God must have impressed him, because usually if you're at the desk taking the money, you won't care who it is, will you? As long as they pay their money, you're not going to be worried about, you know, who they are or where they came from. But that man felt suspicious, and so he went up the room and listened, but he didn't hear anything. But then he said later he was pretending to be asleep, and the girl came down and made a phone call. And he got enough information from her side of the phone call to know what was happening. So that little girl was rescued by 2 in the morning. So God still answers prayer, and we're just so glad for that. I just put this picture in for some who may not know where Nepal is. It's not in a very good place. It's right between China and India. And the persecution in India against Christians is quite bad at the moment. The Prime Minister of India has actually threatened. He said, if Nepal allows religious freedom, we'll come up from India and kill all the Christians. So it's not very easy. But miraculously, God has worked a miracle, and the government that got in just recently, they've just very recently had elections, is not very anti-Christian. So we think God has given us 5 more years to try and get the story of Jesus' love to all the many millions who've never heard of him. This one just gives you an idea. The blue part is Hinduism, the green is Buddhism, the yellow is Islam, and that tiny little red strip is Christian. It's very, very difficult for us to get Christian staff, and of course Adventist staff is still more difficult. So please pray for Nepal. There's lots and lots of needs there. Now, when we first started the anti-trafficking program, there was 2 or 3 that our workers had actually rescued that were actually in Pokhara, where our headquarters are, and our office and our rescue home, also our orphan homes. And so we started off with a couple of little boxes like this that our girls would sit in, and then they would watch who's going past, and they would call in and interview anyone that looked a bit suspicious. But it's just absolutely mind-blowing how God has grown 3Angels in Nepal so much just in a very few years. It just amazes me. We've just sort of grown like Topsy, and we're just so grateful to God for that. Oh, I should tell you that that girl on the... Hang on, where are we? The girl on the left, she is the one that you just saw, with the blind daughter, and she was worked on the border for us for a good 2 or 3 years. Those girls are very good at the border because they've been through it and they know what it's all about. Now, this is a booth that someone from your church actually provided, and so that's a little bit better, isn't it, than the dog box we just saw? This one is at Dungadi. This is a dangerous work to be in. We have to have the police close to our girls, so the buildings actually have, the left side is for our girls, and then the right side is for the police. So it's sort of half-half. I mean, our people are always getting threats, you know, we'll kill your wife, we'll kill your children, we'll kill you. It's, you know, it's not an easy work to do. These are a couple of the girls. The one on the, both of these girls were rescued girls, and they are now working in that border. This is one of them doing an interview with someone that she's called in. Now, this particular girl, when she came to us, I thought that she was demon-possessed. She was shouting and screaming and afraid of so many things. And now they say that if she's not the best worker we've got at the border, she's definitely one of the best. So isn't that wonderful? Just to feel secure, to feel loved, to know that there's a God who loves you, it just sort of, it transforms them. It's just really, really wonderful. Now, this is another new booth we've got. The right side there is for the police. You can see the policewoman there with our girls, and the left side, this is on the farthest west as you can go in Nepal, right on the India border, as far west as it's possible to go. These are the staff who are working there. The gentleman in the Nepali hat, he's the one that you saw on the video. When he was a small boy, he actually fell out of a tree and he broke his arm. Now, there was no money for any medical care, so all his life he's got his hand sort of, it's crippled up like this. He can't open his fingers and his arm is like this. So this is what happens when you don't have any money for going to a hospital or something from these poor people, but he has really been wonderful in the years that he has been helping with our anti-trafficking program. This is a couple of our girls out stopping. They stop every vehicle that goes past just to see who's there and where they're going and why. And, oh yeah, this is just another one much the same. Now this booth, the top part is ours, not the lower section. We put glass all around this one. This one is in a bus station. A lot of girls actually change hands at bus stations. And our workers here caught someone just very recently. They saw this young woman and they went down to talk to her, and she was so excited. You know, she said, I just got married, and she says, I'm going to live in India and I'm going to have such a lovely life. And our workers immediately felt suspicious. And then they looked over a bit further, and the husband had actually seen her talking with our staff, and so he disappeared. So it's often also when the girls are small, like the one I just told you about, the 9-year-old, they can be taken on the way to school. Some of the brothels are even asking for 6-year-olds, we were told. And most of the girls that are trafficked are around the 12, 13, 14, but often the trafficker will go to a village, they will promise all sorts of things to the parents. These girls think that they're going to have a nice life, they think they'll be able to earn money and help their families, and it's all lies. So if somebody tells you they choose it, they definitely don't choose it. Oh, this is just looking down from those windows upstairs. It's good because we've got windows all the way around so the workers can look down and just see who's coming and going in the bus station below. Now, I put this in just to give you a bit of an idea of how easy it is at the moment to get from Nepal to India. I took this photo in Nepal, and if you pay that fellow on the boat 10 rupees or so, he'll take you to India. It's that easy in many places. Of course, mostly the traffickers want to take the girls through the main routes because then there'll be buses or trains or what have you on the India side, whereas if they take girls across here, they may have to walk for, you know, a few kilometres before they can get to any public transport. But it's just too easy. There's no visa allowed, and our workers are really trying hard, especially our CEO is trying hard to get it to be a closed border where you need visas instead of, if you're Nepali or Indian, you can just come and go as you please. Oh, I just put that in. This is some of our workers. We got probably most of those are girls that have been trafficked and rescued. And one of the projects that we have to try and get the message out there, what actually happens when girls are trafficked, there's a team that goes to villages and they act out what can happen to the girls. Actually, even these days, apparently a girl who's walking along alone, there is some spray. And a trafficker can spray behind that girl, she will breathe it, then she will have to, she'll feel dizzy, she'll have to sit down. Then the trafficker will pretend that he's her protector and, oh, what's the matter, I'll rescue you kind of thing. There was a taxi driver just a few months back. He actually saw this happening and he knew a bit about trafficking, and he was telling our workers this story, and so he went over and he said, oh, can I help you, would you like to use my taxi, take her to the hospital? So the trafficker put the girl in this guy's taxi, and he drove all the way to Pokhara, and then instead of going to the hospital, he drove straight into the police station. So we need more people like that really, more interested in helping people than in the money they might get for it. This is looking down on the scene. There was quite a lot of people this day. I hadn't actually seen this before, and although I can't speak Nepali, I could still tell by the way they were acting, what actually happens. It can happen very easily for a girl who's being trafficked, and as you can see, there was a good crowd of people in a big circle there actually watching this acted out by this group who were trying to show people and warn them about the trafficking thing. Now this is the girl again that you saw on the video. We had the blind child with us for quite some time, and the mother was with us probably, she worked at the border for probably a couple of years, and she was actually with us in Pokhara for a couple of years. We had the little girl in a blind school, not too far from our office, and so that's Hema and the little one that you saw previously. The other girl that you saw, she was actually not trafficked into India. Occasionally we can rescue girls that have actually been used in Nepal. She was taken to some bus station, she was locked up in this room, and the men were sent there to her. She was never allowed out, and I forget how many months or that she was there, but eventually she managed one night to persuade some child to open the door. So she managed to escape, but then when she got home, her mother said, "Why didn't you die? You're dead to us." This is often what happens amongst the Hindus. Once a girl's life is spoiled, as they say, the family don't want them anymore. And so she actually took her mother's sari and went upstairs to hang herself. And she actually jumped, but then her sister just came at the right time and rescued her. So it's amazing, some of the stories the girls tell us about what has happened in their lives. Now this little one, I just put this in, she's the daughter of one of the girls that's currently in our rescue home, Safe Haven we call it, and this is one of the items that the girls are making. We are trying to get the girls trained into making things. We teach them sewing, cooking, you know, some of them I think do, you know, hair cutting and makeup and that kind of thing. This girl, the one in the purple dress, she was actually gang raped. When she came to us, she was pregnant, she didn't want the baby, and our guys, you know, they really tried to persuade her, look, you know, just take care of him for a little while, just breastfeed him so he'll be okay. So she did that, and now she's learned to love him. And that's him there with her in the wheelbarrow. And this is her, he's a lovely little boy, he must be about 3 years old now. And here she is working in our bakery. We're trying to get some income generating things that the young women can be involved in because some of them have got nowhere to go. We teach them sewing and, you know, as I just mentioned, quite a few other things they're learning. And some of them, you know, you give them a sewing machine, they're able to go out and support themselves. But some of them have got nobody in the world. And this girl is one of those. So we have a bakery, and which photo did I put next? Oh, anyway, I'll get to that in a minute. But this little girl's story is when she was very small, maybe about 2 years old, she had a mother and a baby brother, and the father was out in the jungle trying to find food. They had run out of food and he was looking for roots, and they also eat quite a lot of the fern fronds when the ferns are just, you know, before they open out. And he was attacked by an elephant and injured very badly, and he was put in the hospital. Now he was there for quite some time, and during that time his wife and the baby just vanished. So many people just vanish. Often young married women are also trafficked. And this little one was only about 2 years, and she was left locked in the house. Now, nobody knows how long she was there. Some think she'd probably been there for 4 or 5 days until someone found her. And then one of our pastors actually cared for her for a little while, and then he brought her up to one of our children's homes. So trafficking is everywhere. She belongs to the Chipang tribe. They are a very poor people. They mostly live in the mountains, and they grow enough food for sort of most of the year, but then there are other times, you know, when we've taken food to them when they've run out of having anything to eat. Now this girl, she was out actually looking after somebody's goats and buffaloes, trying to earn a little bit to buy a bit more food for the family. And she was raped by 2 men, and then they tried to kill her with a sickle. I don't know whether you can see the scars on her forehead. She's got lots of scars, and actually in her hair also. We didn't know about this in the beginning, but they said that the men thought she was dead, but then one of the village boys found her. They said she was unconscious for 15 days, and then sometime later, after she'd recovered, the government welfare or one of those organisations brought her to us. She spent quite a bit of time in our rescue home, and she really wanted to study. So every time I go, she's actually back now in the village, which makes me very afraid. All sorts of things can happen in villages. You really get to love these girls, and if they're not under your nose, you worry about them. But when I was there just a few months ago, I went to visit her and gave her a bit of money and said, now, you don't get married, will you? Hoping that she'll be able to really finish her studies and then maybe become a teacher or do something worthwhile with her life. She's a beautiful little girl. Now, this little one was actually raped on the way to school when she was 7 years old, and they found her unconscious. Now, she's been with us probably for about 3 years, and now she's studying well. She was, of course, just for a short time in our rescue home, and then we put her into one of our children's homes, and she's a very beautiful little girl. She's studying well, and it's so wonderful to see the change and the transformation in their lives. Now, God has given us a radio. This was a big surprise. Like I said, God has just grown our projects and that so much. You can see the tower there. And one of the main projects that we're trying to get out is the anti-trafficking. I think we're almost covering the whole country with anti-trafficking programs. Often our rescued girls are part of that. And we're also trying to get the gospel. They say there are many, many villages, like I may have mentioned, sometimes I repeat myself, that are 10 days walk from the nearest road. So it's very difficult to get the gospel into those remote parts of Nepal. So we're hoping also eventually one day to be able to get the gospel out to those areas also on our radio, and also health programs. This is just one of our staff on the radio. I just put this in to give you a bit of an idea. Aren't these girls beautiful? These are all rescued girls, and we had just bought them all a long skirt, and they thought that was pretty nice. But they all were in our rescue home. Now, this little girl, we rescued her probably about 6 months ago now. We actually were at one of these prostitute community villages, and someone said, look, you need to take this girl. What had happened? The mother had vanished. We don't know whether she was trafficked or whether someone took her and killed her, we don't know. But then the grandmother was looking after her, and then the grandmother was cutting grass and she fell and died, and so this girl was being abused by the father and the grandfather. And often at night she would go out and just roam around and beg and sleep on the streets because she was so afraid. And so we decided we'd take her to our rescue home, excuse me, and she wouldn't lift her face, she wouldn't look at you. And I felt really sad. Then I was away for a couple of months, and when I came back I was just amazed to see the difference. It's just so wonderful just to see the change in these girls. I give them all a teddy bear when they come. It was interesting, one of our girls that grew up in one of our orphanages, when she was about 25 or more, she said to me, next time you go to Australia, please bring me a teddy bear. I never had a teddy bear. And so I did that, and then even her boys, which were about this big, you know, they were real happy to see the teddy bear as well. So it's really sweet. These children have had nothing, and just some simple thing really makes them happy. Now, this lady was actually rescued when she was a little bit older. I would think she was probably around 30 or so when we rescued her. And she had been, I think, in one of the Middle Eastern countries. A lot of young women go to those Middle East countries, Dubai, Kuwait, those ones, and they think they're going there to work as housekeepers, but then what happens is they are made to prostitute as well, and as soon as they get to the airport there, their passports are taken away, so they can't escape. But this photo I took just very recently, when she came, she learned sewing, and to begin with, she just had a little shop and a sewing machine. And then she had a bigger shop. And actually her husband came back and they were reunited, and now she has that baby and she's really, really happy. It was so nice to see her like that. That's her on the right. And the one on the left is another lady. She was actually also trafficked into one of the Middle Eastern countries, and she said she was forced to prostitute for any visiting men that came to the house. And how she escaped, I'm not sure, but I think some Nepali man came to know about her and somehow helped her to get out. This girl, I'm not sure what her story is, but she is staying with us permanently now, and she's in this picture, she's just showing some of the jackets they're making. We've now got as an income generating project what they're calling the quilt factory, but we're making clothes as well as quilts, and she's very happy, very hard-working girl, and these are some of the quilts that the girls are making. This wasn't sort of set up for the photo, I just sort of took it, so it looks a bit of a mess, but it gives you a bit of an idea of some of the things that our girls are making. And then we're selling these and then also using them to give to needy people. Lots of people still die of the cold in Nepal, and it's very much needed. This photo was taken only about a week ago. Our young woman who does our 3Angels Nepal work in Kathmandu, she found this group of disabled people, and there was 26, she said, in this place, and so she was able to give all of them a quilt. They're very, very poor. They've got no proper kitchen. She said half the wheelchairs were not working. But, you know, these are all the little things on the side that we try and help also. But those quilts were made by our girls, our rescued girls, and it's such a blessing that this way we're helping people twice, okay? We're helping the girls who are needing work, and then we're also helping the poor people who sometimes die from the cold. Okay, this is some of our girls who have been doing the baking course. When they saw me with the camera, they just ran to get all dressed up, and it's just so lovely to see them happy and smiling. They just like to get their photos taken. It's I think the best part is just seeing the changes in the girls. This is some of the girls doing some gardening. Once I grew some veggies. I grew some pumpkins and that, and they were growing really beautiful, and they had runners on them about this long, and then next time I look out, they're all gone. Because where I stay is next door to where the rescued girls are, and someone had told them to clean up the garden. So they cleaned up the garden. This is the girls out on some land that has been bought for 3Angels by a group here in Australia, and we're hoping one day to have our school and our children's homes out here. But these are our rescued girls working. The one that's standing up, I don't think she knows how to work. I went there 2 or 3 days, and we were picking up rocks and stuff out of the soil and, you know, putting them along the edges of the field there. But that girl, she was just watching. I think she must have grown up in a city, and she didn't sort of know about picking up rocks, but it was interesting. Most of the girls worked really, really hard, and it was, you know, it's a blessing really for them to be out in the fresh air, and it's a really lovely spot. And then, you know, they all come together for lunch, and, you know, they were singing and everything. It's really a pleasure to be able to work with these children. Now, this girl was in our safe haven home probably for a couple of years. She's actually from one of the prostitute communities. They say there are 19 prostitute communities in far west Nepal. We've got children in our children's homes, probably from about 6 of them, but there's only one so far that we've been able to really accomplish much. We've started a small school in one with about 130 children that are 6 years old and smaller. And what actually happened was when we went to check, we found that there's a whole heap of 2-year-olds also in school. You know, I mean, it's free babysitting and free lunch, you know, and because we give the children a cooked lunch. And so I said, look, some of these mothers, you know, you can't expect one teacher to teach 67 children, especially if half of them are 2 years old. And so I said, look, some of these tiny ones, you have to take them out into the chicken shed. So this girl, who was one of the girls that had been with us for quite some time, she's now married and got a baby. So the next time we went back, she actually was in the chicken shed teaching these 2-year-olds to say A, B, C. And It's interesting, I just will mention about the chicken shed. We thought if we did this, this would be an income generating for the prostitute community. But then the first lot of chickens, they raised them and sold them. That was really good. But the second lot of chickens, they ate them all. So now we're trying to think of some income generating that's not edible. Someone suggested that they could make bricks, you know, or something like that. So we're trying to think of some income generating that's, you know, that might work better. But so we're using the chicken shed for a school now, okay? So they've put the mats down for the children to sit on, and also the food for the children's meal is being cooked here in the chicken shed. And that's our girl that I just showed you in the one before. This is her actually teaching these little kids. And this was her when she first came, okay? On the left is her, that's her on the right sometime later. I just put in a couple of these from our rescue girls, photos that we took when they arrived and then photos a little bit later. Yeah, it was just, these girls were actually all from the prostitute community. Okay, it doesn't want to click. Okay, some of our girls have accepted Jesus. And of course, we want them to know that there's a God who loves them. But whether they accept or not is God's problem, isn't it? It's not ours. We just try and do what we can to be a blessing to as many people as we can. And also, it's difficult now for us to have baptisms out in the rivers like we have done in the past. These are all rescued girls being baptised in this particular photo. But now it's with the anti-Christian thing here and there, we have to be a little careful about, you know, having baptisms in the open. Now, on the video, you actually saw that girl on the right. She was trafficked when she was 14 years old, and she said during the years she was in India, she was sold 7 times. You know, this is just like goats and buffaloes. It's just horrible. But she is now married, and she and her husband are the ones in charge of they're the Bible workers in the community where we've got the school. And this day she was given this award for her work, and she is now even at the lower levels of the government as a representative of the low caste people. So isn't that amazing? When you think of a 14-year-old being trafficked, and then how she escaped and came back, I'm not sure. There's too many girls and too many stories for me to know them all. But now she's back. She's been back for a few years, and she's also been working with the anti-trafficking. Her and her husband look after a small booth we've got in a bus station. And with their work in that particular community, it's just wonderful to just think of where she came from and where God has her now. And just when you see the smiles on their faces, it's just wonderful to know that now they feel safe and that God has given them a new life. This is another young woman that was in our safe haven for quite some time. She is now a tailor, and I think in this next picture we just went to visit one of these communities, and there she was, and she had about 7 other young women that she was teaching to sew. And I thought that was really nice, you know, that they're sharing and doing what they can with the talents that we've been able to give them. And now she is in the same community where we have the school, and she actually made all the children's school uniforms. So we're really glad for that. This girl was also in our rescue home. I worry about this one a little bit. She went back to the community and was married, and then when we saw her a few months back, she's married and she's got this baby, but the baby seems to be somewhat retarded, and he had club feet. So we sent her up to Kathmandu, but I just haven't heard, you know, what has happened to her over the last few months. So we can pray for her, remember for this little tot that... And this young woman, she is now out in one of the villages, and she is winning people for Jesus. There was about 4 people that we saw get baptised some months back, and it was basically because of this girl's witness that she had learned of a God who loves her. There's no God of love in Hinduism, and we just want everyone to at least have the opportunity of knowing that there's a God who loves. And I think that's the end. So thank you, everybody. Please pray for Nepal and pray that somehow we can rescue, we can somehow stop the trafficking from happening by, if they make it a closed border, that will help. It won't fix it. I think we need a 20-foot rabbit-proof fence or something, but it's 1,500 kilometres of border with India. So it would be a lot of fence, wouldn't it? But we're trying to, our guys are trying to somehow get the government to change the rules so that you at least have to get a visa to come and go. You can't just come and go easily like, but it's easy for the traffickers because they're working with poor people, illiterate people, and so they tell all sorts of stories, you know, and people believe it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Helen, for sharing those incredible stories with us. Thank you for being a woman who lives your convictions. Thank you that you care deeply about the marginalised, no matter what the personal cost is to you, and thank you that you follow God's leading in your life. I love the way what you're doing in Nepal is not about just giving a quick solution. It's actually about changing girls' lives and empowering them to help themselves, and then they're going on to help others and to make great changes, and I think that's fantastic. Another thing I really love about Helen is that Helen doesn't have any. She will tell you, I don't have any special skills, I haven't done any study, I don't have any special degrees, but Helen just says, I don't know, I see a problem, I look, and I think, what's the sensible thing to do? What should I do next? She prays about it, she says, God just puts ideas in my mind, and I just go with it, and we see where God leads. And I love the way that you operate and you do that, Helen. You know, I'll just tell you a little secret. Helen's not 21, she'll be 80 shortly. And she's quite a remarkable woman in that respect, isn't she? Not many 80-year-olds are doing what she's doing. I really, really hope that some of the stories that you've heard today have impacted you, and every time I hear Helen's stories, and I've known Helen since I was in high school, I think, probably, or known of Helen, and those stories are incredibly impacting. At times, we might think that it's hard here living in New Zealand, but I think we have absolutely no concept, do we, of what goes on behind closed doors in countries like Nepal. There are already people from Papster who have contributed significant lump sums to make a difference to the work that Helen's doing. There are people who have set up automatic payments and are contributing monthly to make a difference to these girls. And more than anything today, we just wanted you to hear some stories, and we wanted you to say a huge thank you to making a difference for these girls. These girls that you have now seen have faces, have names, have lives, have children. And the girls who $20 has just made all that incredible difference for them. But of course today, if you do feel moved, if you would like to continue to make a difference, if you want to do something more, we are going to have the opportunity to do that. We're going to collect an offering shortly. You can, whatever money you put in the bag today is going to be used to help fund border crossing stations where Helen is working. You can do that actually any week by just using an envelope that's in the seat pocket behind you, in front of you, and writing Nepal on it. As the deacons come round today with the offering bag, they're also going to have one of these forms, and that will help you if you'd like to do an automatic payment, or if you'd like to sign up to our quarterly e-updates about exactly what's happening there. Another thing I'll tell you is that after we talked last time in April with Andrew and Julie, there were 2 other families from Papster who came forward and said, we want to do something significant, and they each individually have funded another border crossing station. So together as a church family, we actually have 3 of the 12 border crossing stations that are funded by our Papster family, which is pretty cool, isn't it? As we finished with you today, I just want to leave you with this thought. As a church family, we are really intentional about sharing freedom here in South Auckland and in other places around the world, and especially in Nepal. In Jesus' last story to his disciples, he said, the real version's going to be up here on the screen, but this is my version. I'm going to read it to you today. When you fed people who were hungry, when you gave thirsty people a drink, when you rescued children from slavery, when you did these things for one of the least of my brothers and sisters, Jesus' brothers and sisters. You did it for me. I want us just to think about this for a minute. What Jesus is really saying is that God himself dwells in what we might consider to be the very least of humanity. And he is inviting us to look and to recognize his face in these girls, and to help and to serve God himself in and through the lives of our brothers and sisters around the world. I'm going to invite our singers to come up now. And I really do hope that today you've been inspired as you've listened what Helen has had to share. And as we go from here, we all don't get to serve in Nepal. We all can only have so much money that can go around, and that's fine. You and God and your family decide where you can responsibly give and share. But if God's calling you today to do that, let's be a part of that. We're going to sing today, Break My Heart, Lord, for What Breaks Yours. And whether that is at home or whether that's in Nepal, that's fine. But let's sing this today as a prayer.
And make it clean.
Heal my heart and make it clean.
Open my eyes.
Open up my eyes to the things unseen.
Show me how.
Show me how to love like you have loved me.
It's our desire. Break our hearts.
Break my heart for what breaks yours. Everything I am for your kingdom's cause. As I walk from earth into eternity.
Let's sing in church, Hosanna.
Hosanna, Hosanna.
Church family, if you want to know more about this ministry that Helen's involved in, and there's so much more to know, come and chat to Helen afterwards. If you want to drop your form at the info desk, that would be great. Feel free to chat to me anytime about it. Right now, we just want to pray for Helen, pray for the work that she's doing, pray for the girls in Nepal. And as we do, let's just reach our hands out towards Helen as we pray for this beautiful and humble woman. Father in heaven, we just thank you for the gift to this world that Helen is. We thank you for the wisdom, for the compassion that you have endowed her with. And Father, I just pray that you will continue to fill her with wisdom, that you'll continue to fill her with new ideas, that you will give her health and strength, that you will build the team around her. We thank you for Rajendra, who leads when she's not there. We thank you for the incredible girls who have been rescued and who are now serving their fellow sisters in Nepal. We think, Lord, of the girls in the rescue home who were so incredibly traumatised, but we thank you for the work of restoration that is happening there, and we pray, Father, that your presence will continue to be seen and heard and felt. Father, I pray for us as a church community too. May our hearts be broken to be like yours. May we think beyond ourselves. May we recognise that you put us in this world to make a difference and to be your hands and feet. And we thank you, Father, for that opportunity. And I pray that this week we will go and we will make the most of that. Thank you, Lord. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.